I wish I knew about this earlier. David said that to me just after his treatment ended, disheartened and exhausted. And it broke my heart because I hear it far too often. Because earlier could have protected his strength, earlier could have improved his outcomes, and earlier could have changed everything. But earlier isn't only about time, it's about perspective and what becomes visible when we change our vantage point. Like standing up on the escarpment, we stop, we breathe, and the whole coastline comes into view. And we realise some things were there all along, but we just couldn't see them from down below. Now, that kind of perspective takes humility. It's being willing to say, well, maybe the way I've always seen this isn't the whole story. So let me show you what you can see when you change your view and what David could have known earlier. It wasn't a new drug or new device. It was something he had the whole time, and what many people don't know about. That there's a pharmacy inside all of us, and movement opens its doors. The medicine is in your muscles, right there inside you. You see, when muscles contract, they don't just move us, they communicate. They release chemical messages into our bloodstream, signals that talk to our immune system, our brain, our heart, and every tissue. Switching immune defense on and dialing inflammation down like an internal shield. So this isn't another wellness idea. This is exercise biochemistry. And here's the question that has shaped my entire career as a physiotherapist and exercise physiologist. If movement can change the internal conditions of our body, and it's that biologically powerful, then why is it still one of the hardest treatments for people to take up, especially when they need it the most? And I think the answer is this, that it's wrapped in a word that people flinch at. Exercise. A word loaded with identity, old stories, past failures, effort, and that quiet thought of, I'm just not that kind of person. So the problem isn't that people don't value exercise, it's that we've never truly introduced it as a medicine. And now there's one place where we just can't afford that narrow lens anymore. Cancer treatment. Now, cancer care today is extraordinary. It's advancing fast. Chemo, radiation, immunotherapy, surgery, they save lives. But when the doctor says you have cancer, we throw everything at the disease, yet we forget about the body that has to survive the treatment. And exercise oncology is how we train that body to build reserves and shift the biology against the cancer. Not as a hobby, but as a therapy alongside the medical plan. And yes, the uncomfortable truth is that right after diagnosis, the moment we feel least capable, is often the time we need to train the most. Not for medals and not for beach bodies, but survival. Because the treatment not only hits the cancer, it hits the person. And in 2025, the evidence hit hard too, stopping clinicians in their tracks. A major international colon cancer trial, the Challenge trial, showed something huge, that structured exercise helped people stay cancer-free for longer. And it was randomized, gold standard. The researchers described the magnitude of the benefit as drug level. Now let that sink in. Hard outcomes, level 1 evidence of exercise affecting survival. And the wild part? We've been ready a long time. 10 years ago, I put an exercise studio inside a local chemo centre to bring this evidence to life, and we tried. Yet a decade later, we're still building those pathways, and without those pathways, exercise oncology remains invisible. So when David said, I wish I knew about this earlier, that wasn't about motivation. It was about access and what could have been. So now, let's meet Leanne. Just days after her diagnosis, she was offered exercise oncology. She'd been thrown on a roller coaster she didn't ask to ride of scans and schedules and side effects and the fear of the unknown. And she said something to me that I hear all the time. She said, Kylie, I know exercise is good. I've heard it all my life. But right now, I'm just trying to process everything. I've never been in a gym, and this is really hard. She was right. This was hard, and she was scared. But she needed to be brave at the same time because this was one of the only things that Leanne could control on that ride. But it still didn't feel like a medicine to her. It felt like a personal choice and not a treatment. So we reframed it. It was no longer exercise. It was a stimulus, a biochemical advantage. She began to picture her cells and tissues responding inside her, and not the old story of exercise she knew. So we had 3 weeks until the treatment started. 3 weeks to build an armour, to lower inflammatory load and build lean muscle reserve. So come inside one session with Leanne when her treatment started. She would show up to gym early on chemo day for her precise pre-game dose. We'd start on the bike to shift her circulation. And within minutes, her heart was pumping harder, her blood moving faster, and her vessels responded and widened. Then I turn up the resistance because intensity matters. And then a river of blood flow is surging. Because tumour vessels are often disorganised and collapsed in places. They're low in oxygen, hypoxic. But during this priming session, it's like we can splint those vessels open. And imaging studies have shown this rapid rise in tumour blood flow after just one bout of exercise. So if chemotherapy is going to be delivered an hour later, Leanne's going to want this route open, flowing, with as much medicine reaching that target as possible. It was like giving her tissue an oxygen mask from the inside and making the environment less friendly to cancer. And what about her immune system? Yes, it was fired up too. As Leanne squats and lunges, adrenaline and noradrenaline rise like a siren, signalling to her cells to move. And then the gates open. Her natural killer cells flood into her bloodstream. Her immune surveillance ramps up fast, and her frontline defenders are now on patrol. So Leanne was no longer working out. She was creating a timed immune deployment for her body to fight back. Now, my next move, I place a dumbbell in her hand, still priming tissue. Just like the chemo nurse preps the skin and primes the line, strength work is how we prepare and build the muscle to absorb the toxicities. So here's the real magic. As her muscle fibers contract and slide over each other, pumping those dumbbells, signaling molecules spill into her bloodstream. They're myokines. And in lab studies, these powerful myokines are being shown to slow and even suppress some cancer cell growth. Now, if I was Leanne, I'd want those guys in my bloodstream every session. And I'd say to her, hey, guess what? Your muscles are texting your whole body right now making medicine. And she'd smile and keep going. And here's the epic part. When the session ends, the chemistry doesn't. Blood taken even 30 minutes after exercise still carries these signals. So Leanne was protecting the tissue that protected her. And this was not a generic move more. The dose was precise. The right formula to trigger the signals. Just like chemotherapy, the dose is tailored for a specific effect. So after a session one day, Leanne said to me, after this, I go home and I have more energy to be a mum. And those words were the whole point, because Leanne just doesn't want to survive this year. She wants to be a mum for the next 20. And so after her treatment ends, the mission becomes survivorship, protecting her future. Because years later, the next biggest threat isn't always the cancer returning. It can be treatment-related cardiovascular disease. And so we keep training for school drop-offs, grandkids, and life. And Leanne trusted the evidence because the challenge trial result hit so hard it made the medical world sit up with survival outcomes that changed the conversation. Now, science alone doesn't save people. So I became determined with one mission. How do I get this epic research into the people? because this medicine lives in behaviour. And that's when humans get human and bias creeps in, assumptions, time pressure. And exercise can be a pretty hard sell, even for people who know the science. So I have a confession to make, but first, I'd like you to make one with me. Just a quick raise of hands for those that exercise regularly but don't often feel like it. Exactly, I get it. Because I'm not a fan of the act of exercise either, but I've learned to deeply respect what it does. And I didn't come into exercise oncology because cancer touched my life personally. I came into it because the evidence touched my brain and then my heart. And I saw what precise exercise can do in cancer. And then I couldn't unsee it. So I'm not a researcher. I'm the bridge from the papers to the people. And that requires belief. And so here's what we know. It's that motivation isn't about being strong. It's about being wise. And if we want to go from knowledge to action, we either need to change the conditions or change the way people see them. And in cancer care, we have to do both, because exercise oncology has been here all along, biologically powerful and extensively researched. But what's been missing is our perspective and our courage to build it into care, to deliver it, resource it, and fund it. So the simplest system change is from diagnosis to automatic referral to a qualified oncology exercise professional. So the dose is precise and safe. And not just after treatment, not only if they ask, but everyone. Because when something is proven but not accessed, well, that's not medicine yet. My dear friend was diagnosed at 38, 3 young children, stage 3 cancer. And we didn't stop. We trained before, during, and after, through tears, silence, laughter, and grit. And recently, she was reflecting on her second life and what it takes to fight back. And she sent me a quote that summed it up, and it hit me straight in the chest. Hope has dirt on her face, blood on her knuckles, and spits out a tooth as she rises for another go. That's what this looks like, that kind of hope. And we all deserve this medicine. Thank you.